Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hey there. Thanks for joining me today on the Good Divorce Show. I am Karen McNenny, your good divorce coach. And today, oh my goodness, it is like, girlfriend, get out of town. We have so much to share with you. Jessica and T.H. founded exEXPERTS, and they are the hosts of the Divorce Etc. podcast. And you know, it all started for them through their own experience, like so many of us doing this work. Been there, done that. They are two best friends who got divorced at the exact same time. And although they had completely different experiences, they were lucky enough to have each other through it all. And it also made them realize that not everyone has a Jessica or a TH in their life. So they created a platform to ensure that no one goes through divorce alone. It is hard and sucky enough. Let's bring a support team. Their Divorce Etc. podcast and the exEXPERTS website provide honest, reliable, no-nonsense professional resources to help guide you through your divorce. TH and Jessica support, educate, and empower you to make the best choices for yourself and your family so that you can move forward in a positive way. They are honest, they are encouraging, and they create a positive space for everyone in any stage of divorce. And, you know, who doesn't need that? So today we're going to talk a little bit about their own journeys, but also the do's and don'ts of what they've learned going from a time when their children were, under the age of 8 when they became divorced. We're going to start back in the beginning with them when their children were 2, 4, 6, 8 years old. And now we all have young adult kids, and how your parenting plan, your budgeting, and the things that are going to shift and change over the course of your children's lives. Remembering the marriage may be ending, but if you share kids, that relationship is forever. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get at it with Jessica and TH. The exEXPERTS want to talk about the good, juicy stuff. And that's what we do here on the Good Divorce Show, is not bury it in the closet with shame and silence and isolation, because that does not help any of us.
No,
that's right.
I have some questions that came up maybe months ago. You wrote these down, but where people get it wrong, and it's just getting stuck and holding on to the garbage as you move along. Where we get it right in this idea of being proud of how we did it, and can we feel proud at the back end of things? What you've learned now in talking to divorce experts over, is it 3 years your show has existed?
Yeah.
Almost 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit of your own journey having small kids. TH, I think you had 3 kiddos under the age of 8. Jess had her 2 and 4-year-old. I had a 5 and 7-year-old. And those are really indelible. And now we have, all young adult kiddos.
Yeah.
And kind of what they have to say about it. My podcast, we have about 50% of our guest folks working in the industry in some way. So yourselves, accountants, therapists, financial advisors, all that jazz. But the other 50% of my guests are people who've come through it. So couples who've had a good divorce, and not both always want to be on the show, right, mostly because they're shy or they don't feel comfortable with it, not because they're like, you shouldn't talk about us. Adult children of divorce, bonus parents, the folks that have, found a path. And I think we just don't illustrate enough what it can look and sound like to have 2 people who are ex-spouses who can sit in the same room and chat, or at least in the same Zoom room, and laugh about some of the moments, celebrate each other as co-parents. And I think the more that we can emphasize and bring that about, then people are like, I don't have to totally live as enemies with my ex-spouse.
Right.
Like, there are other options.
Yeah. I mean, my whole setup was more that we would be enemies because it was so contentious.
Oh, yeah.
I think that being enemies means you're still giving that person some power, and that I'm spending my time being angry. So I don't look at him as an enemy. I don't look at him as anything except the father of my kids. I have no feeling. I think that having feeling and holding feeling for someone means that you are not doing the work for yourself, because they don't really care how you feel about them, right?
Yep.
But you're like, if you're spending any time being anxious about your ex, then you're wasting your time and you're losing good health and good times for yourself. I've learned a lot, and although it was a different path, and mine took 4 years, 3 judges, mediation, lawyer panels, every expert on the a la carte menu, I did the best I could in my divorce. And so I still think, in my mind, I had a good divorce. Is it the way that I wanted it to be? 100% not. Considering the man I was divorcing could have been a hell of a lot worse. And it was did I have a good divorce? Did I walk away with a settlement that worked for me? Are my kids good? Do we have roofs over our heads? Am I feeling great about my life? That means I had a pretty good divorce then. It took a little longer and a little bit more zeros on the legal bills, but here I am. So I think just because you can sit with your spouse versus not really enjoying sitting with your ex-spouse doesn't mean you didn't have a good divorce. You know what I mean? I think you're still in a really great place regardless of how you got there.
Yeah, great insight. And I think part of what you're highlighting, TH, and is this idea that when we're holding, I have one friend who I was going on about my former spouse. I'm like, Karen, you're taking the poison and waiting for them to die. Like you really are just holding it's only hurting you. And you and Jess have identified that this is one of the places where people get it wrong. And I remember our fourth and final marriage counselor, we went back for one bonus round after the decision was clear, like our work here is done. I'm like, we don't know how to do this next thing, right? Which is why the experts exists, why the good divorce coach exists. Like we sort of fall off this cliff of we're working on the marriage, fighting for the marriage. And now, okay, well, now what? And one thing she said was, do no more harm as you move forward. Like that's a goal. And I thought, well, that's really powerful. And the other thing she said was, your goal is to become indifferent towards each other. I wasn't even sure what that meant in the moment. Like, how can I never have feelings for this person? It's the father of my children. We fell in love. We had married. We had this whole life. But it's that not getting hooked into the emotional part. What else would you say about that, Jessica?
I mean, first, I just want to say how much I agree with that. I mean, I feel like the conventional wisdom is like, you love them or you hate them. But experts say that the true opposite of hate is just indifference, or the true opposite of love is just indifference.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of what TH was saying about being able to kind of let go of the control that they have over you. But I feel like to get to that point of indifference, everyone has their own process and everyone has their own timeline. But I will say, like, for some people, if they are having a super contentious, vindictive divorce, in some ways they may get to that indifference point sooner, because it's like there's literally no love left at all.
Right.
And I feel like in other cases where it broke down, maybe because, it just wasn't, you weren't compatible, or someone was devastated by infidelity. And for whatever reason, like, I mean, Teach and I both had marriages where our husbands cheated, but like, it was a lot harder for me. There were definitely cracks in the marriage. Like, and there was a huge part of me that was like, okay, well, now I'm getting out and I'm not the bad guy because he's the bad guy because he cheated and he crossed that line. So like, okay. But getting to that point of indifference was like years long of a process, because I also am of the mindset of like, you meet someone, you fall in love, you walk down the aisle, you profess your love to this person and make these vows. How does it end up like that? Like, it's just, the concept is so kind of devastating.
Yeah.
That I think that's just such a sadness to be letting go of what was once this dream that you had of what your life was going to look like and what your marriage and your family was going to look like. And anyway, I agree with you 100%. You have to get to that point of indifference. But TH and I talk all the time. Like, I still have pangs of sadness. It's usually if I'm angry about something or something is like frustrating me when it comes to the kids, and then thinking to myself, well, God damn it. Like, if we hadn't gotten divorced, this issue wouldn't be an issue right now because we would be a more cohesive team. And even if we disagreed on something as a married couple, we would have to be a united front. And when you are divorced, you're not a united front often. And one partner is usually a lot less compelled to be a united front. So
Right.
I feel like it hurts sometimes to just think like, I think my kids are doing great. I think they're really resilient. I think that they're very well adjusted given the circumstances. We've talked about, you said in the beginning how young they were. Like, my kids don't know any different. Going back and forth, that was their whole life. I mean, they don't really have a comparison. So to them, as hard as it may have been, it really was their normal. But there are things about their lives that, like, I think I'm sad that they didn't have that were like normal, quote unquote, or like the traditional idea of family and upbringing that we think about. It's a struggle all around, regardless of whether or not you have a good divorce.
That's right. It's a huge adjustment. As you've spent the last 3 years and your own journey of divorce, talking with lots and lots of people about divorce, are there any hacks moving through, especially that initial grief period and moving towards indifference, and how to take the hook out of yourself and move closer to emotional freedom from the divorce experience?
I mean, I would say don't play the blame game. Don't play the blame game. Literally sit and find a really great therapist who I had, who really helped and coached me and ended up being the perfect therapist to help me in divorcing a narcissist like my ex-husband. And just footnote here, I don't use that word casually. I discourage anyone from using that word casually, because there is a big recovery period from being married to somebody like that. And I think that over these last 3 years, as Jessica and I have developed experts in divorce, et cetera, if you go back to maybe one of the initial recordings where we're talking about this, I'm very guarded. I'm literally uncovering more stuff. And I would be like, holy crap, that's me we're talking about there. But I did have a therapist who really helped me figure out noise versus fact, which was critical in moving through the contentious divorce I was facing, plus being able to co-parent with him once the divorce is over. And I'm like left on my own without my team. So I think having a really good therapist who helps you and meets you where you are, make sure you're telling them about what your needs are or where you're at, and they should be able to help you. And if they can't help you, then find somebody who is trained properly to help you. I can blame him for all the things that I can point fingers to, right? The affair, the years, the neglect, the disrespect, the terrible parenting. I mean, just the list could go on, but it doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
Because we're not married anymore. I'm never living with him again. How do I just make sure that I don't end up with somebody like that again? So that work is all your own. I take responsibility for staying in that marriage. I take responsibility for letting somebody treat me like shit. I allowed that. That is 100% true. I didn't invite it and I didn't match it, but I allowed it to happen. So finding a really good therapist is really critical, and finding people who you can talk to just about stuff. That's what exEXPERTS was created for. We're your girlfriends through it all. We're not divorce coaches. We're not financial experts. We're not lawyers. And I don't mean although for law. We are well versed in so many things about divorce now, with over 200 episodes recorded on divorce, et cetera. And with equally over 200 expert professionals like yourself in all different facts of the different types of professions that may come your way or you may need as you go through all of this. having somebody who can really help you figure out how you got to where you are, kind of like what Jessica said, like, how did this freaking happen? And then how to make sure that you can have the best life despite this happening.
Right. You used a phrase, TH, noise versus facts.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. Would one of you unpack that a little bit more for our listeners to understand that distinction? Because it sounds like a really good tool to be watching for.
I mean, I mean, I don't know how old this audience is, but if you look at any of the characters, the teacher from Charlie Brown, it's like, wah, 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 right? Or I'll update it for you. What is it, Family Guy, where the kid's sitting next to the mom? He's like, mom, 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 mom. Right? That's noise. That's literally noise. So when I say deciphering noise from fact, I used to be berated by at least 50 text messages a day on top of emails, game, all of the things. The trick that I was taught is that if it puts a pit in my stomach, then it's hurting me. And that's noise.
Mm-hmm.
If it's factual, my daughter has to be here on this date at this time. Great. We're talking logistics. We're talking business. That's fact.
Yeah.
If it's hurting my heart, that's noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I put notifications on my text messages. I would stop reading if it started to hurt me. And then ultimately I deleted it. Sometimes, and I think a lot of us do, keep it. We're like, can you believe she said this and he said that? And look at it. Look, I'm going to share it with you. All you're doing is cycling yourself within that mess. You must.
Absolutely.
So like for me, because I'm a little bit of a food diet person, like if the cookie's there and I want one bite of the cookie, I'm going to have the bite and I'm going to shove the rest down the garbage disposal. That's how I don't eat the rest of the cookie. So now you can't even just delete. You have to permanently delete. So delete and permanently delete at your moment of strength and make it go away. Unless you need it for abuse or addiction, for proof of that kind of thing. If they're just can I curse on this show?
Go for it.
They're just being a complete asshole, then delete.
Delete. I sometimes refer to this as pain shopping. And it might be holding on to those old messages. It might be going through the Facebook. We go looking for the pain to pick the scab. And what we really want is for that scab to become a scar that no longer oozes and bleeds and spills out all over the world, but she says, hey, look at this. This is what I came through, what I survived. Mm-hmm. Jessica, one of the things that you all have talked about is, this elixir of time. And there's a point at which it's like, oh my gosh, I fought over that for years, for months, and it doesn't matter anymore. The journey of divorce has a long tail and our lives have a long tail. So what we choose to hold on to, as you reflect back over the 16 years, we're recording in 2024, but this long journey that you've had post-divorce, what have you discovered in your own journey, as well as the experts you've talked about, in the journey, and what we hold on to, where it has benefit and where it is just like not gonna matter? So help it not matter today.
There's a lot going on there. I feel like for me, I have always been pretty good from the very beginning. Even in the throes of the beginning of the divorce, I was always able to compartmentalize and think we had been together for 18 years and we had a really good run. We really enjoyed our time together for many years. And while there's no question the last 2 years were shit, I've always been able to be like, well, but the 2 years of shit doesn't negate the first 16 years of great. And I've always been, that mentality has really helped me out. I know that there are people out there who it was never really great. And I hear a lot of stories from people about how they never should have gotten married to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that is a different circumstance. And I can't speak to that personally. I feel like for me and for anyone out there who, with the information you had at the time, if you would get married to them again and don't regret it. I don't regret having been married. And like I said, we had so much fun together for such a long time. I feel like that really helped me along my journey because I've always been able to be like, I can appreciate him for all of that, even though there's so much annoyance to all of the things. I mean, we're not married. So things that probably would have aggravated me in our marriage aggravate me 10x being divorced from him. But I think that being able to compartmentalize and maybe appreciate some of the good can help you. And what's most important about the capability of being able to do that is that I think that has helped my kids tremendously. My kids see and know that I genuinely like their dad and that we can break bread and we can celebrate holidays together. He came and joined. I took my kids out for brunch for Mother's Day, and he was nearby and he came and met us like for dessert, like for my Mother's Day brunch. Like that's the kind of relationship we have. And I think it really helps my kids. And it's what I had envisioned from the very start of the divorce process for me and for my family, and it worked. So I think that, again, everyone's journey is different. Not everyone has the opportunity, you know, to compartmentalize that way and feel that way. But that's been tremendously helpful for me. And I think that over the years, as we've grown the Divorce, Etc. podcast and, you know, developed out the exEXPERTS platform, a lot of experts that we've spoken to have kind of agreed that if that's an option, that is, you know, a healthy place to be and can be really beneficial for the kids. And so I feel like we're in a really good place because despite as annoying as I think he is and all the things that piss me off to no end, I don't have to live with him anymore. And I will just add that one of the hardest lessons for me as kind of a type A person is that it was very difficult for me to learn that I cannot micromanage what happens on his time when the kids are with him. That was a really hard pill for me to swallow. And it was, my input was very unwelcome. And it took me years to get there. And I've had so many conversations with my parents when they're like, how can you let him XYZ? You know, the kids are doing this. And how do you let this happen? And I'm like, you know what? I can't go down that road. I'm not even going to let myself go down that road. I'm not going to ruin my weekend. It is what it is.
But you did go down that road and realized the hard knocks way that it wasn't getting you anywhere. It was just taking you.
For the first several years, I would say at least probably 3 to 5 years, probably closer to 5. Because again, they were only 2 and 4. So now even 5 years, you're talking about, you know, 7 and 9 years old. I would be like incensed. And I would feel the aggravation, like I was drowning in it sometimes with the things that he was like allowing them to do at his place. And I really, at a certain point, just a lot of it was because my work was so all encompassing and such a high pressure job that I didn't even have the time. I'm like, I got to pick and choose. And when I'm at work, I got to focus on work and whatever the hell is happening over there. Like if they're in bed at night and, you know, eating and and safe, I'm out. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah. With the clients I coach, we go down to, are they in mortal danger? Well, no, they're not in mortal danger, but they're having Fruit Loops for dinner and they're going to bed after 11 o'clock and their homework is never done. And I'm like, are they in mortal danger? And they're like, is that the threshold? I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. I'm sorry.
But don't you think it's more that you're afraid that they're going to like your ex better than you because they get to have Fruit Loops and go to bed late? Doesn't that sometimes play into it? Sometimes.
I think that there can be these sort of unconscious competitions between co-parents of being more liked, doing the more fun things, the bigger trip, the better present for the holidays. And in the end, again, we don't want our kids to feel like they're having to choose sides or that they're being the spy or the reporter or the negotiator or the mediator. Like they are just the kid.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I think that what's been a struggle for me a little bit has been as the kids get older, there are circumstances that they have to be involved in. And I can't continue to be the one to manage it without their participation. You know, there are
Right.
things that the kids may want to do, and it may cost a certain amount of money. And he needs to be on board and he needs to be a part of that conversation. And so just like they might come to me and be like, here's what I want to do and here's how much money it is. I'm like, you got to talk to your dad.
Right.
I can't unilaterally decide. It may be because I can't afford it, or it may just be because it's a bigger conversation that both of your parents have to be a part of. And so that's been really hard for me because there have been conversations that I've had with them over the last year or two where I've had to say, as I haven't had to say, but I've said as part of it, like, I'm so sorry. I don't want to involve you in the money conversation, but that has to be a conversation that you have with your dad. And by the way, if you want me to be there, I will come with you to his apartment and we can have a family discussion about it. But you're the one that needs to ask him for that money because that's like out of my hands. So I think that's been a little bit, it's hard to kind of like, you don't want to have the kids involved in certain things, but as they get older, they kind of have to, and you have to sort of set them up for that.
Sure. And by way of context, Jessica, how old are your kids currently at time of recording?
My son is 20 and my daughter is 18.
Right. So we're getting into young adult. And TH, how old are your kids?
20, 22, and 24.
Right. So listeners, to really be clear, we're not telling the 10-year-old, you want to do soccer, go see if your dad will buy your soccer shoes.
No, I'm talking about my daughter wanting to have a nose job. Like, I can't just unilaterally say, okay, like, we're going to need to talk about the cost of that. And also it's plastic surgery on your face. And I understand this is the age range for that. And I don't think anyone's going to say no, but like, that's not just a conversation between you and I.
You can't just show up at dad's house in 2 weeks and be like, hey, what's going on?
And not for nothing. That's also an expensive surgery. Like, he can contribute to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's college and it's cars and insurance and down payments, right? And I think a lot of people, because our parenting plans really are effective until the age of 18, right? And that's when the court's like, okay, they're adults, and everyone's like, you're fine. But the reality is, none of us really get off our parents' payroll until we're about 25, right? Whatever kind of education path you choose, you're now paying your own insurance, you've got your own living conditions, you're maybe your first grown-up job, etc. But this 18 to 25-year-old period, especially for folks like you and I, we've been divorced a long time. It's not like, okay, now we're done. And I always say to my couples at the beginning, like, your marriage is ending. Your relationship is not ending. We are renovating it. And will you kick us off, TH, with a little bit, going to recap all that one. TH, give us a little insight of how the relationship with your co-parent has shifted from those young kids through high school and now into the young adult years where the court isn't chiming in any way, but you still have to co-parent.
So my kids were 8, 6, and 4. And my ex was not present for the last 4 years of our marriage, literally not present. He wasn't even in the state. He was on the other side of the country. So he missed birthday parties, he missed holidays, he missed vacations, all while claiming he was working, which you'll have to listen to our very first episode on Divorce, etc., to hear what really happened. So as I was going through my separation, my hardest part was, I'm the parent in charge. I've always been the parent in charge. You don't even know who their teachers are. You don't get a say in anything. Now you're showing up. Now you want to be father of the year. Where have you been? You don't even know what grade our son is in, probably. So that was very hard for me because I was the decision maker on everything. I probably wouldn't have done the nose job without asking him, but pretty much everything else I very well could have. So when I was going through my 4 years of negotiating my divorce, my parenting plan to a T was one of the most important things in terms of which holiday. We're alternating every year. What if I go away over Christmas and then I'm home, but Christmas is a long break? Well, then I get to decide if it's my Christmas break if they can go with their dad, like to a T. And it was reversed, if it was his Christmas break and then he came back to town and there were 3 days left, then I could have an option to be with them. Jewish holidays, first night, second night, I mean, to a T. And so that was really, really important. We also had in there that both parents should show up for parent-teacher conferences. One of the things that he had to do right away, this is before co-parenting apps, was he had to go sign up for the parent portal for the school. He had to go and sign up for all the alerts. He had to go put his phone number down with the doctor. He had to do all of those things. The onus was on him. I was not his messenger or secretary or reporter. And so those things really created safe boundaries for me. I didn't have to, air quote, help him be a better dad. He had to help himself, sink or swim. So those kinds of things I have held on to. So now look, then the kids become teenagers, right? They don't want to be with either of us on the weekend. It doesn't matter whose weekend it is. I kind of felt like I was lucky if I got birthday and Mother's Day. So that was a little bit of a struggle, honestly. But then I was still the default mom. It's dad's weekend, but can you pick me up from this party? And then I was like, ooh, yeah, I'll pick you up from the party. Keep it a secret from your dad. Like, even though you shouldn't be going to the party, but I still felt like, here's mom coming in to save the day again. And then as they went to college, so another thing in my parenting agreement is that child support did not end at 18. It ends when they graduate college.
Okay.
A mistake I made was increasing the amount of child support when they go to college. Pro tip, they're more expensive in college.
Amen to that.
They take Ubers. They fly back and forth to school if they're not local. They have a car with gas and insurance. They have, if they need medication, you can't just buy at Costco shampoo for everybody. He's got to go buy his own shampoo, and way more expensive in college. So if you can negotiate to get some degree of child support while they're in college, I encourage you to try. You have nothing to lose. So now I have 2 girls who have graduated college, and I will say from that parenting agreement, I still hold on to alternating holidays. I still have a 20-year-old in college, and I know this year is my Thanksgiving. And so I think I have kind of trained my kids that they don't know about a parenting agreement. They just know that we're alternating holidays every year. So this year is my Thanksgiving. It's their Christmas with their dad. Then I get spring break. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but for me, the parenting plan was critical in dealing with someone who I can't sit with like Jessica does. I can only handle business with him. So I refer to the business agreement that we spent an exorbitant amount of money and time and energy creating. It says it right here, buddy. I get Thanksgiving this year. So that's what's worked with my kids and me.
And I think, part of what I just want to re-highlight is that you have a very rigid, tight parenting plan. That is what your family needed. And the kids start to get a voice, and then eventually they start to get a vote.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm going to Mexico for Thanksgiving. Love you, Mom. I don't care whose year it is. Like, they start to become more and more autonomous. And I think it's a big adjustment for parents as we move through that age. I worked with a couple where the children were beginning to emancipate, and everyone thought that there was parent alienation happening. They went back into work with me, and we identified like, oh, you're not the enemy to each other. It's your teenager who's an enemy to both of you. They're doing their job, which is to push away. But it was such a radical shift. And so often we want to turn to our co-parent for that blame as a place to land that anger. What about for you, Jessica? What have you seen really shift and alter over the years from those, toddler years into the teen years and now into young adult years? And what our listeners need to think about in that long tail of co-parenting and divorce?
I think that we, of course, had a parenting agreement. And I think that over the years, we were always very loose with it. And that worked for us. The flexibility worked because if one of us was traveling, then the other one, we had it like if where the schedule is, if that parent is not available for whatever reason, then first dibs goes to the other parent versus like, them getting a babysitter or, the kids going with their parents or something like that. So I feel like over the years, the flexibility is what really kind of stayed constant. The consistency of the agreement that really worked for us. I don't quite know how else to articulate it. I don't like TH. The child support also did not end at 18. It ends when they're out of college. Also, to TH's point, I feel like it really shouldn't end. If you are negotiating a divorce settlement now, I would try to work in there that it doesn't end until the child moves out and is on their own. Because I have a feeling that after college, one or both of my kids is going to come back and live with me. I live in New York City in a great neighborhood, and my ex doesn't have space for the kids in his apartment currently. And my kids have their own bedrooms and own bathrooms in my apartment. So I think I think it's really a possibility that they could come back here, and it's like, okay, well, I literally just last week spent like $500 on groceries because both my kids are home and my fridge is like half empty now. So if you are able to kind of prolong what those payments look like, I think it's definitely worth it because they are a lot more expensive as they get older. They also can have jobs and they can have internships and they can contribute to their own bills. Fortunately, I never had to worry about buying my kids a car. I mean, I live in the city, so that was not, a thing. But I think that that's something to consider if you're kind of going through it at the moment. I mean, I feel like, there are things I would look back and think like, I don't know how to quite say this. How I did it worked for me all of the years. In the last few years, as the kids have gotten older and as the living situations have shifted and Darren moved and I moved, like, there are things now that I'm like, well, I never held that part of the agreement very rigidly. And now it's like, it's almost too late. Like, I can't go back now and be like, well, there's this thing that we have ignored for the last 16 years, but now I want to start doing it. So I think that you kind of have to just balance. Like, I think that if we had been super rigid for a while, I don't think we would have the relationship that we have now. I don't think that we would have like the flow with the kids that we have now. But now that they're older, there are some things that I'm like, I wish I had. Who knows? Would it have been better or worse? There's no way to know. But I feel like it is worth thinking about from the very beginning. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You're going to have to figure out how you want to follow your parenting agreement, and you're going to have to stay consistent with that. We had something worked out in our parenting agreement about how we could look at each other's or have access to each other's tax returns every year, which was supposed to have been for any type of potential change in the child support. And we never did that. And 10, 12 years out, I was kind of like, when things were not going so great for me financially, I was like, shit, I kind of want those tax returns. I want to see whether or not we should be adjusting things. And honestly, there was really no way for me to get access. I hadn't done it for 12 years. So the only way that was going to happen would have been me hiring a lawyer and us going back to court, which was not something that I was going to do. So I just think you have to really decide, what things you want to stick with and be rigid about, and what things you're going to be flexible about, understanding that that's what it's going to still be like 10, 15 years down the road.
Right. But also there was a reason it was put into your agreement. So I feel like
I think that that's a common, like, someone's paying child support. Right. They always want the option of having to like lower the amount that they're paying.
Right. No. So that's what I'm saying, for all of us, we've had one divorce. Well, you've had two.
I've had two.
But it was easy. But all I'm saying is the lawyers have done this so many times. And I know there's stuff that's in my agreement that I would never have thought to put in there, but they said you need to put it in there. So I would almost take what Jessica's saying. There's no harm in asking for the tax return. If that's what's in your agreement, just so you always know what's going on, so you don't find yourself in this position. But
but
you can't predict what's going to be in the future either.
But part of my reasoning for not going down that road in the beginning was because shortly into our process, I got a different job and basically doubled my own income. So like there was no fucking way I was showing him my tax return so that he could be like, now I'm going to cut my child support down. So we did have conversations where I did let him pay less. I didn't show my tax returns, but he was struggling and I wasn't struggling. And I was like, sure, we can renegotiate just out of the goodness of my heart. And then it just like too many years passed by. And then when my income was like much lower, then all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, I should have done that. But I feel like it benefited me for a long time to not be exchanging tax returns.
But if you're on the other side, this is just, food for thought.
Yes. And so many pieces that we don't think about it when we're in the emotional part, which is again, that long tail. It's not just the emotional long tail of the relationship that continues, but it is those legal agreements. And I remind people, like when it comes to your parenting plan, there's not a parenting plan police that comes around to your house and checks to make sure you've done this and done that and everything. That is the fluidity of the relationship. The two of you are a beautiful contrast where TH is like, it is by the letter. And that is how my marriage and my divorce has had to be managed. And Jessica, you've had a different kind of fluidity and give and take. And that's the reminder to those of us that are joining in the conversation today that you get to design your divorce based on your own unique reality. And all of these stories are beneficial. So we can go, there's a thing I didn't think about. And that didn't occur. That doesn't apply to us. Or, they're talking about going to parent-teacher conferences together. Hell to that, no. That will never... We'll set up to. So again, being aware that every family is unique and we don't want you to have a cookie cutter divorce. We want you to have the divorce that best suits your family and your needs. And that is a reminder that the professional team you're working with also may not know what's in your best interest. And that we lean on our experts, but we also lean on our girlfriends to say, why are they telling you that? That doesn't make any sense. And it's because you're one of 52 divorces that lawyer's working on right now, or what they always do is boilerplate. But you need to own your divorce experience. Does that trigger anything for either of you of like, it would have gone this way, but we went a different direction because that's what made sense for us?
It doesn't trigger me. I just want to add one thing in like to what you're saying. So, I mean, part of when T.H. was saying like, we're your girlfriends through it all for divorce, it's for exEXPERTS, a divorce, etc. We both have found that it is often easier to talk to people who are not in your inner circle about the circumstances of what's going on, because people that know you really well, whether it's your friends or your family, have preconceived notions about what your relationship looks like, inevitably pass judgment based on what they've heard and the things that you've talked about. We all bitch and moan and complain about everyday life to each other. And so part of what we do when we're working with clients is like helping people try to navigate, like, does it need to be really rigid? Should it be more flexible? Because being able to explain the situation to someone who has no skin in the game, has a very objective point of view, isn't judging, is just kind of like helping you figure out what's the better way to go. Because if all of your friends are in a situation that like TH was in, where everyone's like, you have to follow it every single weekend, you can't go away over those dates because that's, you have the kids Wednesdays and Thursdays. And so you can never be out of town on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Whereas I'm like, whatever, go out of town and live your life and do what you need to do. And then just switch for the opposite and like, make that easier. Like, I just think that sometimes it's a really helpful thing to have people that you can bounce things off of, who've been through it, who understand, and who don't have an opinion one way or the other, just helping to guide you and helping you see down the road what's going to work best for you or not.
Great advice. Anything you would add or comment on where that's concerned, TH?
We work with both men and women. And I think the number one thing that people are looking for is to be heard. I don't have to really understand you, but you want to be heard. you just want a place to put it. So you're not crazy, which you're not, by the way. And we also help you kind of talk through things, which I know you do a lot with people, Karen. Sometimes when you can talk through it, you can hear what you're saying better.
Yes.
So it all falls in line with, this is a no judgment zone. It's also not a bullshit zone. And it's also not, this is not a place to go and spew all the venom that is like haunting you. That's like in the boxing ring or at the gym or, whatever it is to help you get it off your head, and definitely with a therapist. We are helping you move forward. So we meet you where you are, you show up, you're thinking about it, you're in it, you're out of it, and you feel like you're not living your life.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're still, weighted down by the fact that you got a divorce. I've had a lot of things happen in my life. I got a divorce, I've had cancer, my kids graduated college, my kids graduated high school, I dated somebody, I didn't date somebody. Like, that's kind of where divorce needs to fall into all of that. And again, my divorce was 4 years and hugely publicized in my neighborhood. And I live in suburban New Jersey. So like everybody knew. And whatever, I go to the doctor, they ask me, what's your marital status? And I'm like, does it really matter?
Right?
Pay the bill. Aren't I here because I need you to check this like mark on my face? What does that have to do with me being married, divorced, single, widowed, gay, straight? Like, none of that matters. So just trust your gut is my number one, what I wish I knew piece of advice. I wish I had trusted my gut. I was living in fear of what it would mean for me to end my marriage. I was afraid of all the negative stuff that I was hearing from my then husband was actually true. And if I divorced him, what kind of a mother would I be? As opposed to my gut saying, you are miserable and suffocating and not living your life, lady. You got to get out. And I could not find my way. And like Jessica said at the beginning, you point your finger at Darren. He's the bad guy. He cheated. When I got my phone call, I was like, hallelujah, I'm out. I'm out. Thank you. You saved my life. Have a nice life with him. I am out. So it's hard to find your way out. We totally understand. Our goal is just to educate and support you so you can make the best decisions for yourself and your family. We empower you. It's your choice. Leave or stay, but at least understand the implications of your decisions.
Well, today we have been chatting with Jessica and T.H. They are the exEXPERTS. Tell us a little bit about where we can find more of your resources, your podcast, support groups. Give us the shakedown, ladies.
You can really find us anywhere you're looking. We are on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we are on YouTube, we have a website. All of our handles and addresses for everything is just exEXPERTS, EXEXPERTS. It's exEXPERTS.com. It's at exEXPERTS on all the social media. And the Divorce Etc. podcast, you can find it on any podcast platform. You can find it right straight from our website. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on all of the different podcast platforms. So we are everywhere you want to be. If you want to read stuff, we have blog articles all over the website and all the different categories of divorce: finance, legal, custody, financial. I said financial, self-help, like just all of those different categories. It's very easy to navigate, and we are here to help. You can email us at hello@exexperts.com, and we have a great weekly newsletter that's not spammy at all. We tell you what's coming up on the podcast, whether other kind of events are coming up. There's a personal note from one of us each time, and we give different recommendations for other things. What are we reading? What, TV shows are we watching? What are we liking right now? So we have something for everyone, no matter, like TH said, where you are in the process, whether you're just starting to think about it, if you are in the midst of it, or if you're done and now want to know what's next. We've been through all of the stages. So like we say, we've lived it, so we get it.
Absolutely. And Teach, would you say a little bit about the masterclass or inner circle support group of, beyond being taking in the information that you're putting out in the world, how can people participate and find support?
Well, the first thing we encourage everybody to do is to set up a 15-minute free connection call with us. If you go to exEXPERTS.com, you'll see the link right there. And that's kind of how we start to see, is a group the right thing for you? Should we do one-on-one? Am I the right fit for you, or is Jessica the right fit for you? So whoever you're resonating with, we really, every person is different, right? Every circumstance is unique. Everybody feels differently. So start with a 15-minute connection call. The link is right there. And if you want to hear our full stories, you can listen, Divorce, Etc., our very first episode. But also on our homepage is an interview we did with Kat and Nat. And if you don't know them, you're going to want to follow them because they're pretty freaking hysterical. But we take them through the good, bad, and ugly. So we will make you feel a little bit better about your circumstances. We come with humor to all of it because that's where we are now. And if you want to hear the episode where I interview Jessica and her ex tell all, it's season 3, episode 52.
I will also just add in, we do have master classes for purchase where we have interviewed experts in different topics, like what kind of divorce is right for me. You might not be sure. Do you want to mediate? Do you want to litigate? Do you want a collaborative divorce, or like dating after divorce? Should I date or not? And how will I pay for my divorce? And different options, financial options. There are actually companies out there that will help people to finance divorce if you feel like you aren't in the position with legal fees right now. We have, I think, 5 or 6 available for purchase. So you can check those out as well and ask us any questions about any of them. We can help direct you. We have some bundles with regards to that. So where we have divorce, I'm getting divorced, where do I start? Literally from the very beginning, how to find the right lawyer, stuff like that. So that's all stuff that we can help with.
Divorcing a narcissist, co-parenting, we've covered it all. But if you start with a connection call, we will get you the information, whether it's paid or free or somebody like Karen, whatever. We'll get you on your way.
Just such a delight to chat with both of you today. I'm Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach, chatting today with Jessica and T.H. and their Divorce Etc. podcast, as well as exEXPERTS, as you've heard. They provide honest, reliable, no-nonsense professional resources to help guide you through your divorce. And remember, folks, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it is not the end. Hey, please take a moment and subscribe to The Good Divorce Show, rate and review. It helps us push this podcast out to other people just like you who need support, who do not need to go through the divorce experience isolated and in a shame spiral. So thanks for supporting The Good Divorce Show. I'll catch you next time right here on your favorite platform. I am Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram at Good Divorce Coach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.